Good afternoon. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Just get some things together.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Did we run through the test to see if the presentations, if we all have access to presenting the screen?
Hi, Isbel, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, you could call me Izzy. I'm going to change my name.
Izzy, okay, no problem. You're a panelist, so you all have access to share your screen. I made you panelists for that reason.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I'm going to share my screen, but whenever you're ready, I'm just going to take it down. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to sharp share and I'm going to take it down for each panelist.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So can everybody see my slideshows?
Yes,
Okay.
you're fine.
Thank you.
I'm just setting up the streaming on Facebook, so just give me 2 seconds.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I think Tara's trying to get in, but she's saying that because I don't see her here. I don't know if she's added or.
Tara, is she a panelist, an attendee?
She's a panelist, Tara Fitzgerald.
Oh, I wasn't given her name as a panelist.
Okay.
So you could send me her information in an email and I can add her, sure.
I can send that to you right now.
No problem.
My apologies, Pam. I usually send you an email to get an update.
That's okay. What's her name again?
Fitzgerald.
Tara, right?
Yes, Tara Fitzgerald.
Why am I not coming up with her email? All right, Marlene, 1 second. There it is.
Jasmine, you're coming from which agency? Let me look again.
We're with the mayor's office to the mayor's public engagement unit, the tenant support.
Thank you. I have you as HRA. That's incorrect?
That's a part of
We're
HR.
under,
That's okay. All right, no problem. I just want to, I have to redo this slide now to put her on it. Just give me a second.
I just can't find. Why am I not seeing?
Jasmine, do you have her email address? Because I see you
yes, I could.
just respond with her email.
And you don't have to include my name, to be honest. Tara's the one that's gonna be presenting. I usually come on just to, if anything.
Okay, so I'll, no problem. I understand. Just send me her email when you get a chance.
I'll
please.
add her email to.
Yeah, I'm totally not coming up with it. My computer's not recognizing her name for some crazy reason.
I'll send the email right now.
Thank you. Crazy. I can only find Jasmine. I can't find Tara's email. There we go.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
That sounds like Tisha.
Liliana
Hi,
from Housing
everyone.
Court
Good
Answers.
evening. This is Letitia.
Hi, Letitia.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
So her name is spelled T-A-R-R-A-H and Fitz,
Tarah.
just one R.
Yeah, TARA.
Hi, Liliana. I don't know if we've met. Welcome.
Can you hear me now? Okay. We
Welcome.
have not Welcome. Thank you. We have not met. Nice to meet
No. I've met the other ladies, but I have not met you before.
you. Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Very good.
Okay, Tara should get it now. Let's see.
There she is.
Hello, thank you so much.
Sorry for the confusion. We did not have you on our list.
No, that's totally fine. That's our bad.
Look at you, Marlene. You put her right there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Jeremiah the post. I think right here. Jeremiah and Pam, I'm not sure if you all want to wait a little bit more. We can definitely wait a little bit more. It's only 3 minutes after.
I'm okay with waiting just a couple minutes. I don't want to start too late, just since, especially for folks who are here on time. And I know we have a lot of presentations too. So, but I guess maybe like 3 more minutes.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started, and folks will come in as we continue. Okay. All right. So good evening to everyone. Welcome very much to this Tenant Resource Fair. I'm Jeremiah Schlotman. I'm the chair of the Housing Committee of Manhattan Community Board 11. First off, a very special thanks to Marlene Pierre from Community Board 11 and Pamela Glazer from HPD for doing all the heavy lifting and organizing this event and bringing and making it possible for everyone here. So thank you. And thank you also to all the panelists who have taken time out of their schedules to come this evening to talk to you all. We are, it's another, tenant resources are always incredibly important in New York City, even more so during this pandemic, this time of uncertainty when a lot of people are taking hits, are struggling extra with finances, with health challenges, mental health challenges. So I'm very happy that we have an array of panelists here from city and state agencies, nonprofit services. So I'm hoping it'll be very informative. We will have each panelist do a 5 to 10 minute presentation. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. But anyway, I think I might be bleeding into Marlene's comments. So let me go ahead and let Marlene give the administrative opening remarks here, and then we'll get into the heart of it all. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not your fault. I didn't switch the screen fast enough, so mine. Just good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tenant Resource Fair, hosted by HPD in partnership with Manhattan Community Board 11. Just a few opening remarks before we begin, just to keep the meeting running smoothly. To avoid crosstalk and help the meeting run effectively, panelists and attendees are asked to keep their microphones on mute when they are not speaking. It is also helpful to utilize headphones. Those participating by phone can dial *6 to mute and unmute your line. Panelists will answer questions written in the Q&A section after all participating agencies have presented. Attendees that do not utilize the Q&A section during the presentations can use the raise hands function to be recognized. Those participating by phone can dial *9 to raise their hands. Please keep your questions or comments brief. Jeremiah, I'm going to hand it back over to you now.
Great. Thanks, Marlene. So here you all can see, if you can't see, I'll quickly read it out to you, but we have 7 panelists here. We have Tara Fitzgerald from the New York City Human Resources Administration, Isabel Vargas from New York City also from HRA, Ryan Dubois from New York City Commission on Human Rights, Letitia Wright also from HPD, Housing Preservation and Development, Jessica Moran from the State Division of Homes and Community Renewal, Jason Wu, an attorney from the Legal Aid Society, and finally, Liliana Peña from Housing Court Answers. So again, each will go down and each person has prepared 5 to 10 minutes of brief overview of what it is that they most want to share with you all as in this Tenant Resource Fair. And I would just ask you all to, again, utilize the Q&A section and please, we'll have all questions answered at the end for efficiency purposes. I like the Q&A sections the most when it comes to these sorts of things. So again, we will get into that. I want to leave as much time for that as possible, right? But each panelist does have up to 10 minutes and are absolutely free to use it. I thank you again all for being here. And without further ado, we will get into it now. So are we still starting with Tara? Yeah, okay. So you can go ahead and take it.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, HPD, Pam. It's always a pleasure to see you again. And thank you, Community Board 11 in Manhattan. I'm so excited to be here and tell you guys a little bit about our tenant rights. Oh, I can't share my screen until someone else stops. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Oh, I gotta definitely put my charger on. There we go, and present. Give me 1 second. Okay, so my name is Tara Fitzgerald. I'm the Brooklyn Borough lead at the Tenant Support Unit. What we're gonna do today, I have this as my contact. Don't worry, I'll put it in the chat as well. And there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. Using Zoom, you guys went over it, so I'm not going to go over it. I'll skip that. What are we going to talk about today? So who we are at TSU. what your rights are as a tenant in New York City, your tenant rights during COVID-19 specifically, and then resources available to all tenants. And then again, the Q&A will be at the end after everyone's presented. So who are we? The Tenant Support Unit. We are a citywide outreach team that provides case management support to tenants experiencing a housing crisis. We conduct outreach to tenants who might be at risk of displacement or eviction and connect them to services that can help them stay in their homes. Our services are free, confidential, and in your language. And just to note, obviously, it's the pandemic. We're not going door to door right now. That is what we did in the past. Our outreach has changed, and I'm going to go over a little bit of how it's changed later in the presentation. Great. So what do? I like to say we do comprehensive case management. We address everyone's immediate need, but then we also address the underlying conditions that brought about that need. Our specialists continue case management until the case is fully resolved. It's truly comprehensive. We make sure that, yes, their housing needs are met, but if there's anything else we can support them with, we do our best to do so. And of course, we use our network of free legal service providers. LAS is here today, which is really exciting. They're a great partner of ours. Community organizations and city agency partners like CCHR, HPD, et cetera, to get tenants to resolutions that they need in their cases. So what can we help you with specifically? So we can help you learn strategies to get repairs done in your apartment. We can connect you to attorneys in housing court to prevent eviction. We can help you understand your lease, fight rent overcharges, work with the city to pay rent arrears, like getting a one-shot deal, apply for the rent freeze program, which my colleague as well is here today to teach you guys a little bit more about what the rent freeze program looks like, and access additional public benefits that you might be entitled to, fight landlord harassment or discrimination, like using CCHR, and finally answer any other questions you have about tenant rights. So what are your rights? Well, your rates are a little bit different if you live in a rent stabilized apartment versus a market rate apartment. So what is a rent stabilized apartment? Almost half of all apartments in New York City are rent stabilized. These are buildings that have special protections given to them under HCR, the Department of Housing and Community Renewal. And they most often are located in buildings containing 6 or more units built before 1974. So you might be wondering, how do I know if my apartment's rent stabilized and I'm entitled to these extra rights? Well, it should be written on your lease. If it is not, other telltale signs are your rent might be not a round number. So it might be $1,922.22, right? Versus $2,000. If it's $2,000, it might be market rate. If it's that weird decimal, it might be rent stabilized. And if you're not sure, it's totally fine. You can call 311 and ask, or you can go to HCR via this link. I'm not going to read it out to you, but I'll put it in the chat. And you can find out if you are rent stabilized. And finally, what are your protections? Well, you get a renewal lease every year or every 2 years, depending on what you choose. You get the right to choose if you want 1 or 2 year lease. And so they must give you that renewal lease. Like, it is very, very hard to get out of that situation. It's almost impossible. So they have to give you that renewal lease. They limit your rent increases. It is decided on the Rent Guidelines Board. And essentially what that looks like is usually between 0 and 4%. Right now it's 0% for a 1-year lease and 1% for a 2-year lease. And that's voted on every year in October. Or no, it's voted in on, I know what, I'm not gonna say when it's voted on, but it's in effect in October. And then succession rights. So if you are living in the apartment, but you're not on the lease, say you're a spouse or another family member, but you've been living there for 2 years and you have evidence of that, you are attending a school nearby, you go to a pharmacy, there's lots of ways to prove it. But essentially, if you can prove you've been living there, there's a bill in your name, you can get what's called succession rights, which means you can succeed the apartment. You can put your name on the lease should the primary leaseholder pass away, move out, whatever, what may happen. So there are these new protections that happened in June of 2019. It's the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019. And there's a lot of things. It's a lot of different bills that were passed into law. But essentially what this act says is 3 main things that I want you to take away today. 1, preferential rent is now for the duration of your tenancy. So if you were given a preferential rent, that means you were given a rent that was lower than the legal amount. So The landlord couldn't rent the apartment for $2,000, so he put it on the market for $1,800. What used to be allowed to happen is after 1 year, they used to be able to bump that right up to $2,000, which caused a lot of displacement. Now, you need to slowly work your way up by the RGB guideline boards agreement percentage-wise to that $2,000 or beyond. You don't get to bump it straight up again. So if you got a preference, what we call them, preference, and your landlord is trying to bump your rent up again, reach out to us. We'll make sure you get in touch with a lawyer and we can stop that. No more vacancy increases and vacancy decontrol. So basically, there used to be like bonuses if you had a vacancy in your apartment, and there used to be caps on the amount of money a rent stabilized apartment can go for before it becomes destabilized. Those are gone. Okay, so basically there's less likelihood for buildings or apartments to get destabilized. And finally, there are some new rules about MCIs and IAIs. MCIs are major capital improvements. IAIs are individual apartment improvements. Essentially, this is a way for the landlord to offload some of the cost of renovation onto the tenant. It is now dramatically decreased. So the amount they can offload, it dramatically decreased. I'm not going to give you the numbers because they're very specific fractions that you're not going to remember because I really remember them myself. But if you have any questions about your IAIs or MCIs, again, you're going to get my contact info. You can reach out to me. We'll figure it out. And finally, for non-rent regulated tenants, you are now entitled to notice from your landlord if they do not intend to renew your lease or intend to raise the rent by 5% or more. Now, that was a lot there. This is some general and good information to know if you are in any type of apartment, market rate or rent stabilized for all tenants. You have the right to live with dignity, free from harassment or discrimination. You want to live in a well-maintained building, an apartment, free from pests, vermin, lead paint, mold, and other hazardous conditions. You get carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors. You get window guards if you have little ones in the house. And of course, heat and hot water. And you have the right to demand repairs to be made in your apartment if it's not exactly the way you stepped into it the first time, right? Or if they told you that they were going to make a repair and then they didn't, right? You have the right to demand those repairs. And you have the right to remain in your apartment until you are evicted by housing court, by a judge in housing court, and it's executed by the city marshal. Okay, so until you get a marshal's notice on your door, and it's been however so many days since then, the marshal shows up and he's knocking on your door, that's when, and you know that's happening because you went to housing court and you failed to make your case and you lost, and so now you're getting evicted. So it's a long process, and it's a process that has to happen legally for you to get evicted. So please, if you are at risk of any of those steps, if any of those steps are happening to you right now, reach out to me. We're going to make sure you get a lawyer, make sure you fight it so you can stay in your home. And finally, you cannot be asked to leave your apartment due to having COVID-19 or because you're at risk of contracting COVID-19. Neither of those are cause for you to get removed from your apartment. Also, some heat and hot water info. Your hot water should be at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And that can get tested by HPD if you call 311 and file a complaint if you don't think you have hot enough water. And then heating season is still among us. It does not end until May 31st. So if it is 68 degrees outside, if it's daytime and it's below 55 degrees, it must be at least 68 degrees in your home. And at night, no matter the temperature outside, it has to be 62 degrees inside your home. Okay, so tenant rights during COVID. I'm not gonna go too deep into this because LAS is here and they're lawyers and they're gonna do a whole lot better job than me. But just to let you guys know briefly, New York State COVID-19 Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Act of 2020 was passed. Essentially what that means is residential evictions were previously on hold until February 26th. Tenants experiencing financial hardship due to COVID-19 or for whom moving would pose a significant health risk can still complete and return a hardship declaration to their landlord or to the court in order to stay evictions, meaning pause evictions, until May 1st, 2021. Evictions can proceed. This is important to note. So basically, right, if you're suffering hardship or you have some physical ailments making it hard for you to leave your home, you can fill out this hardship declaration form and it will stay or pause your eviction. Like you will not be evicted from your home until May 1st. there is a carve out. And that carve out is if the tenant is a safety hazard or a nuisance to other tenants. So even if you have suffered the hardship, if you are claimed a safety hazard or a nuisance, you are potentially at risk of eviction. So if your landlord is using this language with you, again, please reach out to me, please reach out to LAS. We really wanna help you guys out. So any pending proceedings, including those filed before March 7, 2020, and those within 60 days of December 28, 2020, were also stayed until February 26, 2021, to allow tenants the opportunity to complete the hardship declaration. That's basically why there was that moratorium for a little bit. And then warrants warrants not yet executed shall be stayed, again, meaning paused, until a status conference is held and the tenant is given an opportunity to sign a hardship declaration. If they do, their eviction proceeding will also be stayed until May 1st, 2021. So basically there's just all these other additives that basically just gave you more time to sign the hardship declaration and ensure that you got that protection if you were qualified for it. And to that note, courts are open. Okay, so courts are open, cases are moving forward. This is just a carve out for certain people who are suffering financially or have a health risk. Those are stayed until May 1st, but other cases are going forward. So if you get housing court documents, please reach out to us. And finally, HP actions, tenants can still file. They've been able to file throughout the pandemic for the most part, a file emergency case. So what this is when you sue your landlord. HP stands for housing part. So you can sue your landlord because they illegally locked you out. They shut off an essential service such as water, heat, electricity, or gas. There are serious emergency conditions that must be repaired. And you can file online with Just Fix at this link. Again, I'll put all these links in the chat. Okay, resources for tenants. So like I said, our outreach is different now. We are now doing most of our outreach, not all of it, but most of our outreach through the tenant helpline. The tenant helpline is really great. You call 311, you ask the tenant helpline, and we can help you with a whole bunch of different things. So we can provide information and education. We can refer you to services such as cash assistance and SNAP or Homebase. We can refer you to landlord-tenant mediation. We can refer you to enforcement such as HPD and DOB, and then referrals to legal services. Okay. And how can you connect with us? Well, you can call 311 and ask the tenant helpline. You can fill out a contact us page at the Mayor's Office to Protect Tenants, and we will return your inquiry within 24 to 48 hours. That is a genuine estimate. We really do get back to you as soon as we can. So please do reach out to us. And finally, we have this really cool new tool, the New York City Tenant Resource Portal. I like to call it an interactive FAQ. Basically, we collaborate with the Mayor's Office to Protect Tenants to create this website where you can kind of click through and ask, kind of like answer a bunch of questions to get the answer to your question. So we'll take you through it and ensure that you get the answer to your question. And if you don't, there will be a little submission page where you can submit your question. And again, same thing, we'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And that is it. And I'm going to save the Q&A till the end. Thank you guys so much for having us. I'm excited to all of your questions later.
Thanks so much. There was a lot of great information in there, and I really appreciate that. For those who are attending now who weren't here at the beginning of the introductory remarks, I just want to remind you to please, if you have questions, use the Q&A function, and we will get to all questions at the end after all presentations. All right, so who do we have next, Marlene?
Izzy is up.
All right, Izzy, you're up. Thank you very much.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. I'm just going to echo what my amazing colleague Tara expressed. Thank you, Community Board 11, HPD, and of course, Jasmine is also here. She's a colleague of ours, and we're just very happy to be here. For this, what I'm going to do is I'm one of the supervisors for the rent freeze program, part of the Mayor's Public Engagement Unit as well. And so what we do is that we carry out extensive case management when it comes to screen tree application, initial applications, renewal applications, as well as homeowners tax exemption benefits. But for the sake of this presentation, we're going to be talking about just the rent freeze program. Okay, and so once again, my name is Izzy. I'm one of the supervisors for the Mayor's Public in the Mayor's Public Engagement Unit Rent Freeze team. And we're under HRA. And through this presentation, we're going to take you through what it is that we do and what these rent freeze programs are and what is it that sets them apart in our strategy. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. All right, so the rent freeze unit helps eligible renters and homeowners, primarily low-income senior citizens, and those with disabilities freeze their rent or claim property tax exemptions. Okay, once again, I kind of referenced this earlier on. These are all the programs that we case manage in close cooperation with the department, our friends in the Department of Finance. For renters, we have the free and DRE program, and for homeowners, we have all these other programs that help combat the affordability crisis. So what is it that sets us apart? What can we do? Case management. What we do is we help New Yorkers navigate the application process. We carry out a robust outreach, data-targeted outreach. And what we do is we, at one point before COVID, we would visit you at your door and do everything we could possibly do to meet you where you were at. And so that involves carrying out the intake, verifying your information, whether or not you have the appropriate documentation, making sure that we coach you through the process. We would submit the full application on your behalf. While you went on carrying out your personal responsibilities, we would check weekly the status of your application, and we would problem solve on your behalf so you had nothing to worry about. And then lastly, we do all this with the sole purpose of trying to get you approved. Case management is very important for our team. And the reason is because we give New Yorkers a voice in the process. Often what happens is people are denied for any number of reasons, but these are just some of them. One of them could be that they are wrongfully denied, and so they come to us, whether it be through our partners or they call our hotline or 311, or they go online and they get in contact with us. And they just want us to look at the case because the applicant feels that they have that their application was wrongfully denied. Sometimes they have unique circumstances, and so perhaps they haven't applied because they believe that their circumstances wouldn't apply. But as it's often the case, we are pretty comfortable and have sufficient experience to know that there are many ways around any particular issue, and more often than not, people do qualify. Perhaps for one reason or another, the tenant has been unable to obtain a renewal lease, which we also know how to attain, and we know how to bypass, and we know how to work closely with our friends over at the Department of Finance, who are also in the business of trying to help out as best as they can. And of course, everyone's very familiar with this one, and that is it's either a lost or delayed application. And so once again, once you work with us, we take care of that aspect because more often than not, we will make copies of your application. And so we will submit it on your behalf. And all you have to do is just give us a call and we'll probably update you on that. And you could just continue on living your life. So the SCREE and DRE programs, right, are pretty much the same program. They're called the rent freeze programs, but they're tailored to two different constituencies. One of them is spelled SCRIE, the other one is spelled DRIE. These are two of the flyers that represent those two distinct names. Same program, different names. That's because SCREE is tailored to individuals who are at least 62 years of age, and DRE is tailored to individuals who could show proof that they are receiving federal disability. One of them stands for senior citizens, rent increase exception, that's SCREE, and disability rent increase exception. All right, for the sake to kind of run you through the process and how it is that these programs operate and how it's a win-win for landlords and tenants alike and the city overall. It allows people to stay in their homes. We put this chart together. And so I'm going to present this to you guys, but keep in mind that these legal rent and frozen rent numbers do not reflect current rent set forth or numbers that would traditionally be rent regulated. So both Scree and Dree freeze the tenant's rent at the current amount listed on their lease. As the legal rent grows with each renewal lease, the client's rent remains frozen, quote unquote frozen. The longer the client is in the program, the greater the benefit. The city provides the landlord a tax credit in the exact difference between the legal and frozen rent amount. This is known as the tax abatement credit. This is not money that they receive necessarily in cash. This is money that's deducted from the property taxes they would otherwise have to pay. And so the longer a tenant is on this program, the more money is deducted from their property taxes in the form of a tax abatement credit. So it's a win-win. The rent gets frozen for the senior citizen, and the landlord receives the difference in that tax reduction. So how is it that it works necessarily? So for usually you see the impact across several years. So in the first year, let's say hypothetically your rent was $1,000 and you apply, the city wouldn't take care of any difference because in fact the rent has not increased. So if it was $1,000, then your rent would be frozen at $1,000. The tax amount, the tax abatement credit would be $0. Let's say 2 years later, you go ahead and renew. At that point, and let's say hypothetically and theoretically, the rent goes up to $1,200. The good thing is that because you are in the rent freeze program, you continue to pay $1,000. Whereas the City of New York, the Department of Finance will now issue a $200 tax amount, which you could then reduce or is automatically reduced from your property taxes as a landlord. And so the same cycle continues to happen for the remainder of the applicant's lifetime, so as long as they meet the eligibility criteria. So that is the overall strategic overview of how this program works. It works across a long period of time, and both the landlord and the tenant are beneficiaries of this program. And that's what our team does. We go ahead and we increase the odds of you successfully getting enrolled in the Scree or Dree programs. So for both programs, there is an eligibility criteria. And so for that, I kind of mentioned this earlier on. For the first one is age. For the tenant must be at least 62 years of age. For Scree, and at least 18 years of age on Dree. Both applicants have to be on the lease. So if you're 62 and your name is on a rent regulated lease, you meet the age criteria. If you're 18 but you're receiving federal disability, then you would meet the age criteria as well. Secondly, it's income. The annual household income of all who live in the apartment must be less than $50,000. And the tenant must pay more than 1/3 of their income in rent. So we're going to divide that into two. $50,000 pertains to the overall aggregate of all the individuals in the household. In other words, whoever receives their paycheck or has any benefits associated to that address will be counted by the Department of Finance unless otherwise noted, which we will work that out, as often perhaps kids might keep their parents' address, but they may live elsewhere. And so you have to show proof of that. The entirety of all individuals who are receiving some sort of benefit and have selected benefit or their paycheck to that address will be added to that $50,000 threshold. So as long as you make less than that, whether you're working or not working, you would meet the income requirement. And secondly, the second part to that would be the 1/3 income. And the best way to do that is whatever your income is for that month, divided by 2. And if your rent is in excess of 1/3 of that, you meet that criteria. If it's less than 1/3 of that, then we might have a little bit of a harder time getting you approved. And then lastly, apartment types. just as it was referenced by my colleague Tara, we go ahead and we work closely with rent-regulated apartments. And so the tenant must live in a rent-controlled, rent-stabilized, or other rent-regulated apartments and be listed on the lease or rent order. Additionally, we work with Mitchell Lama tenants, and so they must be on that certificate as well. To add on, this here is specific to individuals who are applying for DRE, the Disability Rent Increase Exemption, and that is that they must provide proof that they're receiving one of the benefits at the very bottom, in addition to meeting the age criteria, the income criteria, and the lease criteria, right? They must prove that they're receiving the following benefits: that they're either receiving federal supplemental security income, federal Social Security disability insurance, U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs disability pension or compensation, United States Postal Service disability pension or compensation, or disability-related Medicaid if the applicant has received either SSI or SSDI in the past. And so lastly, we are in the business of hearing from New Yorkers. And so if you want more information about our team, please visit nyc.gov/rentfreeze, or you may go to our friends over at the Department of Finance and check up with them at nyc.gov/finance. Click on ways to save. You will end up reaching out to us. Additionally, you could call us directly at Rentfreeze at the Rentfreeze hotline. If we don't pick up, just go ahead and leave a voicemail. We try to return calls within a 72-hour period. And up to this date, we're pretty good at it. So the number there is 929-252-7242. Or lastly, call 311 and save Rentfreeze. They will forward you to us. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to share my contact information. And so if you have any questions, just leave it towards the end, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks a lot. All right, so we'll keep the ball rolling. We've already had 2 presentations packed full of information. We're going to move right on to next. We have Ryan from New York City Commission on Human Rights.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you here tonight. Thank you to those who have previously presented, and thank you in advance to those who will be presenting afterwards. So I'm just going to give a brief presentation here. I mean, I do have a much lengthier presentation with many slides that go into much more detailed information, but in the interest of time, I'm going to just be going over a few slides and, trying to give as much information as possible in a concise manner. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. Okay, so I hope that everybody is able to share to see the screen. So this is a list of different categories that my agency offers as protections. But before I start going into all of this in detail, I'll give a brief overview of my agency. So as was said, my name is Ryan. I'm an associate human rights specialist with the New York City Commission on Human Rights. Now, the Commission on Human Rights is the city's civil rights law enforcement agency, meaning that we enforce the civil rights code of the city known as the human rights law. We do have attorneys on staff, and they offer free legal representation to individuals that experience discrimination. And that is the most important service that we offer. All of our legal services are completely free. So if an individual experiences any type of discrimination, whether it be in the area of housing or employment or public accommodations or a variety of other protections, they can approach the agency. An attorney will assess their complaint as long as that complaint is jurisdictional, meaning within the legal boundaries of areas that we cover. Then we can represent that individual in court. I'm just checking the chat box just in case. Okay. So yeah, so if an individual experiences any type of discrimination, they can seek legal representation. We'll assess their case as long as it's jurisdictional. We will represent them, looking to our number one priority being to, of course, get justice for that individual, but also looking to implement mechanisms to ensure that that type of discrimination does not repeat itself moving forward. We also have a policy department, which is always interested in expanding the law. So we have what we call protected classes, meaning groups that are specifically designated as protected under the law. And the policy department is always looking to see where there may have been historic gaps in the law, where we can create new protected classes or issue legal guidances to specify and clarify enforcement of the law to ensure that no one is falling through the cracks, and that the law is as robust and thorough as possible in identifying, capturing, and combating discrimination where it may be occurring in the community. Now, with regards specifically to housing, one important note as well is that, as I mentioned, protected classes are the categories and groups that are specifically designated as protected under the law against discrimination. Now, something interesting about the protected classes is that they do not necessarily apply universally across each area of the law, meaning that there are specific protections to specific areas of the law, including housing. So something that you might think of intuitively with regard to discrimination that is universally covered will be race, gender, disability. These are things that, of course, no matter what we're talking about, will be considered discrimination under the law if you're treating someone differently on this basis. However, we also have protected classes that are specific to housing, lawful source of income being one, which I'll go into in further detail, presence of children, for example, as well. So as you can see, we have quite an extensive list of protected classes in the area of employment. So for the purposes of the presentation, I'm just going to run through these protections. So let's take it from the top, age. So a person cannot be discriminated against in housing on the basis of age. For being too old or too young, you cannot be denied housing. You cannot be harassed to leave your housing. You cannot be pressured to abandon your apartment. You cannot be denied access to facilities in your apartment, etc. And of course, being evicted on that basis. Presence of children, this is an important one as well. An individual has the right to rent or purchase a home and have the children present with them. They cannot be denied housing on that basis. People ask with regard to this a safety concern. Well, if there was a safety concern, that would be with regard to overcrowding or a violation of a safety or fire code. It wouldn't really matter whether the individuals in that case were adults or children. The presence of children in and of itself is not reason to deny someone apartment or pressure them to leave. Color, and I'm going to speak to race and color together in this instance. So of course, an individual cannot be discriminated against on the basis of their race with regard to seeking, acquiring housing, living with security and safety and dignity in their housing, or being wrongfully evicted. And color is a separate category because we take into consideration the fact that someone may be discriminating against someone of a different racial group. They may also be discriminating against somebody in the same racial group on the basis of skin color. So for that reason, we have race and color as two distinct protected classes. Disability. This is a very big one. So if an individual who has a disability is unable to access their building, for example, a step, which may be an impediment to a wheelchair, they would have the right to have a ramp installed. If an individual had difficulty navigating their apartment, they may be entitled to have grab bars installed. Sometimes using the bathroom, that's important. An individual who may need a service animal would be permitted to have a service animal in their unit, even in a building with a no pets policy, because a service animal is not a pet. And so there's a wide variety of accommodations that would be required to be made for an individual with a disability. We define disabilities as widely and broadly as possible in order to capture as many accommodations as possible under the law. So that's an incredibly important category. And I'll also mention, because someone had mentioned in their previous presentation that having COVID or being at risk of COVID or having previously contracted COVID is not a reason to have your housing interfered with in any way. That's true under the context of the human rights law as well. That anything COVID related or medical related in such a context would be considered in the context of disability. So gender identity, of course, and people cannot be discriminated against and denied housing on this basis as well. Immigration or citizenship status, we also have specific protections for individuals, regardless of their immigration status, documentation status, national origin, the language that they speak. They cannot be denied housing. They cannot be subjected to decrepit housing or neglected housing on this basis. Threatening to call ICE on someone, have them deported in the context of housing, these things would all be illegal as well. Now, lawful source of income, this is an incredibly important one to speak to as well, because unfortunately we see this very often, and it's often as well a proxy for other forms of discrimination. So landlord, as long as you have a lawful source of income, you can rent, view, or live in any unit that you choose. A landlord cannot say we do not accept programs. They cannot say we do not accept vouchers, we do not accept Section 8, etc. That type of statement would be illegal. They cannot say we accept certain programs and not others. They cannot say we'll accept your income, but not for this building. You have to live in a different building in a different neighborhood. Any type of negation of housing or steering to other housing, or for example, if you were rented the unit, but you were forced to use a different entrance or not given access to facilities in the building, this would all be considered forms of discrimination as well. Lawful occupation. This essentially meaning that you cannot be denied housing on the basis of the work that you do. This was created largely with lawyers in mind, because many landlords were not renting to lawyers, viewing them as potentially a liability, as people that may be particularly aware of their rights and housing codes. Marital or partnership status, on the basis of being married or in a partnership, you cannot be denied housing on that basis. National origin, I mentioned previously. Sexual orientation, similarly to gender and gender identity, this is not permitted as a reason to interfere or deny someone housing as well. Status as a victim of domestic violence, sexual violence, or stalking, this is an important one too. So a landlord does not have the right to say, oh, because this person may be in some type of relationship situation, which may be compromising to, the safety of the building or something like that. The safety of the individual who's seeking the housing is of the utmost priority. And that as a result of that, the individual cannot be discriminated against on the basis of being a victim of domestic violence, sexual violence, or stalking. In fact, they may be entitled to a reasonable accommodation on such a basis. Pregnancy as well, an individual cannot be discriminated against in housing on the basis of being pregnant, having recently given childbirth, or having a related medical condition. Race I previously mentioned as well. Religion and creed, this is in addition, a person cannot be denied housing on this basis. And then finally, uniform military service. Unfortunately, there are stigmas associated with individuals who are actively participating in military service or have served, are veterans. People cannot be denied on that basis. They cannot be denied on the basis of having an associated lawful source of income or benefit, which there are sometimes housing vouchers as well associated with veterans or military service or status. So I believe I'm coming up on my 10 minutes right there, so I will stop there. I hope the information has been helpful, and I just want to thank everybody again for allowing me the opportunity to share this important information. I will put my personal email, make that available for everyone, as well as the phone number and the website, which you can utilize to file a complaint. You can dial the number to speak directly with our legal department, or you can file a complaint online. Or if you had any questions about the nature of an experience of yours, of someone or if you did file a complaint but didn't hear back in a timely manner, you can always reach out to me personally to follow up on those issues as well. So I will stop there, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan. So I will move right on to Letitia.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So I'm
Hi.
going to, hi. I'm going to share my screen. I'm accompanied by my colleague, Anna. So just to give a brief introduction, my name is Letitia Wright and Anna Ramirez, and we are project managers with the marketing and oversight team at Housing Preservation and Development. So I'm just going to speak with you guys a little bit about Housing Connect and the affordable housing lotteries. So I'm going to share the Housing Connect website with everyone. Can everyone see it? Awesome. I'm seeing some nodding heads.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you. So let me enlarge this so everyone can see. And Anna is going to peek and look in the chat. So if any questions, come in the chat, we'll be more than happy to address them during Q&A. So briefly, in alignment with the mayor's initiative to create and preserve affordable housing here in New York City, any new developments or any developments that are currently erected and they are applying for additional funding through the city, they have to contribute a portion of those units to housing affordability. How these units are awarded to the public is through a lottery system. So you would need to visit Housing Connect, where you can review and look at all the different lotteries that are listed on the site. Each lottery have a different income group and different requirements that aligns with that income group. So you always want to make sure you pay attention to that. And I'll talk more about that when we are reviewing an advertisement that's on the site. So when you visit Housing Connect, this is the main webpage. So I'm going to scroll down. This is going to give you a brief overview of how Housing Connect and how it works. So if you do not have an account, you would need to visit the site and register and create an account. So you would need to create an account and also create and build your profile. So some of you probably have an existing account on the former Housing Connect website. The former Housing Connect website and the new Housing Connect website are two different portals. They do not communicate with one another. So you will need to visit the new Housing Connect website to register and create your account, okay? Any application that you've applied on the former site, you can still log into the former site and you can look at your log number and the project status for those applications. But none of the applications from the old site will transfer over to the new site because these are two independent, different portals, okay? Next, this is a really great feature is that with this site, we want to ensure that users is able to apply to lotteries where their household size and household income meets the requirements. So this handy filter that's here, you can enter your household size and your household size will be comprised of everyone who would live in the affordable unit with you. So you want to make sure you list everyone on your profile, meaning if you have a family member that's living in a different borough than you are currently, and they are planning to live with you if awarded a unit, you want to make sure you list that family member on your application. If you are an expecting mom, you want to make sure you list your unborn child on the application so you can account for every household member that would live in that unit. So you will enter your household size and you will enter your income. By doing so, your household income. And by doing so, the system is going to filter and match lotteries that meets your household size and income. So we just want to make sure that people are applying to lotteries that they qualify for. You also can review and look at the open lotteries by boroughs. So if you have a particular preference to reside in a particular borough, you have the opportunity to click on one of the borough categories to look at those specific lotteries there, followed by different testimonials that we have on the site. So you can take the opportunity to peruse and look at that. I'm going to scroll back up. And I just want to speak briefly about these different sections of the site. So open lotteries, if you click on open lotteries, this will give you a list of all the lotteries that are open on Housing Connect that you can apply for this minute. But we're going to visit that in a moment. The tab is very helpful. If you click on the About tab, and if you do not remember anything that I've mentioned within the last 10 minutes, you can always revisit the About tab. And here you will find helpful information about Housing Connect. okay? And also about what is considered and deemed as affordable housing. How does Housing Connect work? How you can apply, how you can prepare to apply. And then also if you want to peruse and look at more additional information, especially our FAQ section, you'll be surprised that there is a wealth of resources and information listed here that can assist you in navigating your process of applying to affordable housing here in the city. Under the Learn tab, we have helpful tutorial videos that can navigate the process of you creating and registering your account, as well as completing the different sections of your profile. You cannot apply to a housing lottery if your profile is incomplete. So you want to make sure that you are completing every section of your profile. That's very important. Login is self-explanatory. You will click on login to log in to the site. If you haven't created an account, you will click on register to do so, to create your account and log in. But most importantly, what we're most excited about is this globe. So with the new site, it is compatible and linked with Google Translate. So you have the capability of translating, I believe it's like up to 90 or 100 languages. So we just want to make sure that language is not a barrier for users in navigating and searching the affordable housing lotteries here in the city. So let's say if your native language is Spanish, you will click on this globe, you will click on Spanish, and then the site is going to transcribe all the characters to your native language. And then you will be able to search and look at the housing lotteries that are open under your native language. Okay, so when we click on open lotteries, right, we're able to see the list of lotteries that are currently available on the site. With the housing lotteries, you must apply by the deadline date. So you always want to make sure when you see a lottery that you're interested in, make sure you apply to it. One of the benefits of creating an account online is that you can register one time, you can create your profile, and after completing all sections of your profile, you can go ahead and apply to as many lotteries as you qualify for. However, there are some that prefer a paper application, and you can do so. But in order for you to receive a paper application, you have to submit a written request. You will submit a request, a paper application is mailed out to you. You will complete that application and you would need to mail it back. It needs to be postmarked by or before the deadline date of the lottery. So you always want to make sure you pay attention to those dates. It's very important. I'm going to open the advertisement so you guys can see more in depth. But before I do that, I just want to highlight this specific area. So another added bonus with the new site is that we streamlined home ownership opportunities. So you can click on the sales tab and you would be able to view any home ownership opportunities that are listed on the site. These opportunities are strictly for first-time home buyers. So everyone on your application, it must be their first time purchasing a home. No one on the application should have property or own property before. And these opportunities can be condos, it can be co-ops, or it can be an actual house itself. So you just want to make sure if you are interested in looking at these opportunities, please do so. And also, double check with your lender to see any specific criteria they may have, because with the home ownership lotteries, your credit score will come into play. I think on average, most banks require of you to have a 620 score or higher. So you always want to make sure to find out ways of how to improve your credit score and your credit history, specifically for the home ownership lotteries. But for the rental lotteries, your credit score is not a deterrent in terms of your eligibility to apply. Okay? And I know I'm almost at the end of my 10 minutes, but I think it's really important to just highlight one of the lotteries that's here. This is the current senior lottery that we have at the moment. So definitely, if you have a household member that resides in your home 62 years or older, and if you see a senior lottery listed on the website, apply to it, okay? But I just want to give you just a brief overview so you can understand the different sections of a lottery advertisement. So what's very important here with this system, you would be able to see photos of the development and the unit, and also it's going to give you the name of the project, the location, the address of the project, the eligibility, income requirements. As you can see here, it's 0 to the max is $51,200, and also the household size. So if you're a household of 4, you can already see that you wouldn't qualify for this lottery because your household size is too large. So you want to make sure you're applying to lotteries that your household income and household size meet the requirements. Here you're going to have just a breakdown of the developments and also the funding programs that's affiliated with the development, the list of different amenities that's with the building. Also, if you see this section on an advertisement, it just gives you specifically the percentage of units that are advertised for this project, how many would be reserved for households that indicate if they have a household member with a mobility disability or a vision and hearing disability. Sometimes we do have lotteries that have a community board preference or municipal employee preference. So if you see those specific preferences associated with the development and you qualify for them, you want to make sure you apply as well. Okay. The next section of the advertisement is going to break down the available units and requirements. This is the most important section of the ad. Is going to break down the income group that's associated with the lottery, followed by the unit type, how many of that unit type is being marketed. So for example, this is a 50% area median income project. One of the unit type that's marketing is studios and 1 bedrooms. There are 26 studio units with this lottery. There are 18 1-bedroom units with this lottery. It would give you the specific rent amount that's listed here, and also the household size followed by the household income. The next section of the advertisement will be a map. So this will just give you specifically proximity of where the development is located, nearby transit, nearby police stations, parks, hospitals. You can familiarize yourself with the area. This is also connected with Google Maps, followed by images of the development, common spaces, as well as the units. And this is the most important section of the advertisement. So if you are someone who's interested in applying by paper, you always want to make sure you look at the apply by mail section. That is going to tell you specifically where you need to send your written request to receive a paper application. Okay, and with that, that concludes my overall overview of Housing Connect and the housing lotteries. Keep in mind, again, you can always visit the Housing Connect website. You can navigate the different tabs that we discussed earlier, especially you can revisit the About tab where you can have a concise and breakdown overview of the lottery process, as well as Housing Connect and how you can qualify and apply to it. We're going to leave our contact information in the chat. Our team is currently working remote at the moment, so we do have a hotline number, which is 212-863-7990. You can call and leave a message, and a team member will follow up with you. But if you can, it is best to email us, especially if you're having like any issues with setting up your accounts, or if you're trying to apply to a lottery and there's a glitch or something that's occurring. You can always take screenshots of the discrepancy and email our team so we can assist you. And our email is nychousingconnect@hpd.nyc.gov. So thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm going to turn the program back over to Jeremiah. Thanks again.
Thank you. So we will keep going right along here. Oh, just a quick reminder, Marlene put it in the chat, but if you have any questions for any panelists, please utilize the Q&A function instead of chat. It's very simple. It's basically the same thing. It's right next to chat. That way we can keep the chat as clean as possible because our panelists are dropping useful information like links and their contact information for you. So yeah, please just use the Q&A section and we will get to it at the end. All right, so next we have Jessica. So take it away, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, perfect. So my name is Jessica. I work for New York State Division of Homes and Community Renewal. I work for the Public Information Unit. This is just a quick overview of what DHCR does. We regulate rent-regulated apartments, which comprise of about 900,000 apartments in the New York City and the surrounding counties of Westchester, Nassau, and Rockland. Owners are required to file rent registrations with our office. Tenants can request for a copy of that. It's called the rent history. In addition, tenants have a right to file complaints with our agency if they have lack of repairs, if they're not getting their leases, or if they think that they're being overcharged. With these complaints, DHCR will investigate and will give owners and tenants a chance to respond, and we will issue a decision in writing. Based on that decision, the tenant or the owner can file an appeal, which will also receive another written decision or another order. So I'm going to go over these topics with you. I'm not going to focus on all of them because some of my previous presenters, they did go over that. The very first thing is the borrower rent office, the procedural changes that took place because of coronavirus. So our offices have been open since late June of 2020. However, we are now only open by appointment. So I do recommend if you live in any of these boroughs to give us a phone call and make an appointment. The appointments are only 30 minutes long and you are required to wear a mask. And you are advised to bring proof of tenancy or proof of ownership with you. And yes, we're still open. Recently, the Brooklyn office is back open again in case you do live in Brooklyn. But yeah, this is a change for us. And I'll show you guys another change that took place later. It's our info line. I'll share it in a couple of minutes. So we actually already went over the rent guideline increases. If you're in a rent stabilized apartment, as you may know, the 1-year lease has no increase, and a 2-year lease has an increase, no increase on the first year, and it has a 1% increase on the second year. I recommend tenants, this was also briefly touched upon, is the Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act of 2020. I recommend tenants to visit the New York Court's website. This is, I have the link right here, to learn more about how can you file for a hardship declaration. The main takeaway from this slide is that evictions have been stayed. They've been paused until May 1st of 2021. But to learn more about it, you should visit the New York Court's website. So we are still in heat and hot, we're still in heat season, and the heat season extends until May 31st. Again, if you are in a rent stabilized apartment and you have either a lack of heat or hot water, you should first call 311. Once 311 gives the landlord a violation, you can proceed to actually file a complaint with DHCR, the heat and hot water complaint. So those services are considered emergency conditions, so they will be handled as quickly as possible. But the first step that you should do is contact 311 so they can get their inspectors out and investigate it if the landlord's complying with heat and hot water. The rent relief program is closed at this time. They extended it until February 1st. The reason I'm sharing this website with you guys is because the rent relief program website has been updated to include a lot of information. So if you were a tenant who filed for the RRP for the rent relief program, you should visit their website or send them an email if you have an application pending with them. They did have an info line number, but that was taken down effective 1 week already, so effective since last Wednesday. But they are still monitoring their email address. And as I mentioned, they have a lot of good resources in their website, which is listed right here. It's hcr.ny.gov/RRP. So Rent Connect, the website is also listed here. It's a really good website where you can obtain all of these bullet points right here. So you can request for a rent history by going online. You can also send us an email or call our info line number. I will share that in the next slide. You can file complaints with us, online complaints. These complaints include if there is a lack of services in your apartment, so individual apartment services, if you believe that you've been overcharged in your apartment, if you're having lease issues. So somebody mentioned succession rights. If you want to establish your succession rights, this is the lease complaint that you can file with us. Another thing is that if you would like to respond to a major capital improvement case, let's say you received an acknowledgement letter and you'd like to respond to it, you can go online, enter the PIN number that the notice includes, and you can respond to this form online, up to you. You can also respond to it by paper. And then the next thing is that there's also has an MCI payment estimator. Again, if you have received a major capital improvement acknowledgement, there's a notice there that says that your rent might go up by this amount. So if you want to know what that exact calculation is, you can use the estimator to help you come up with that amount. And here is our resources. I recommend that you give us a phone call at our info line. Again, that our number was changed after a lot of decades. So our new info line number is 833-499-0343. And our Rent Connect, where you can ask us a question. This is the portal right here. You can request for a rent history in the portal. You can ask general questions there and we will get back to you. And if you also need to contact us by making an appointment, this is our Contact Us website. And if you've been affected by COVID-19, this is another very good link that you can visit that has good resources for tenants and landlords. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we're almost here. We'll have Jason come up next and talk to you all.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So my name is Jason Wu. I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society. And most of you probably already know, but just a little bit of background. Legal Aid is one of the largest legal services providers in the country. We do everything from criminal defense to juvenile rights, and our civil practice includes everything from housing, benefits, employment law, community development, family law, and the list goes on. And so I work out of our Harlem Community Law Office, which is located on 125th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. And I work in our tenant group housing representation unit. So I've had the good fortune of being later in the panel, and many of my co-panelists have already laid out much of the status of COVID-19 protections, as well as the kind of basic tenants' rights that tenants have. So just to quickly kind of summarize, so as you all know, there is an eviction moratorium. As noted, there is a moratorium through the state. There's also a federal CDC moratorium. The state moratorium goes through end of May or May 1st, and then the federal goes through the end of June. And so part of the question remains, what happens in New York State after the state moratorium lifts? And so it's very possible that the state may pass another moratorium bill that would extend the eviction moratorium further out. And if not, then the federal moratorium could then be used in New York City and New York State. Another point that was mentioned was regarding rental assistance. And so many of you have heard that there's federal money that was supposed to come to New York State. That money is supposed to be here, and the city and the state is figuring out how to best disperse that money. As noted earlier, there was a state COVID rent relief program that was created last year, and then it was reopened for a second round of applications. There's been certainly challenges that we've heard from clients and in the community about accessing that rent relief fund, and not all of that money was dispersed. And so we want to make sure that any new tenant relief money that gets put out for applications are easily accessible, right? And so we want to make sure that people who need that money can get it without jumping through all these hurdles that make it impossible for people to access these funds. Also, there's certainly some questions around the long-term challenges regarding housing. The moratorium delays eviction, but it does not cancel rent. And so there's open questions around what's going to happen with all of this debt that tenants and working families and low-income families are accruing during this time. And so certainly these are legislative issues that are being debated, right now. And so I'm just flagging that that's something that we'll have to wait and see what the city and the state does regarding the debt that's accrued and the tenant relief funds and all of that. In terms of also the housing courts, right? A lot of the court cases have been put on hold because of the eviction moratorium. But as noted earlier, the courts are not closed. So particularly for tenants who want to file affirmative cases for harassment or for repairs, the courts are open. As noted earlier, you can file through Just Fix, which is a website that makes it very easy for tenants to file pro se without an attorney. And the courts are open for a range of other cases, including illegal lockout cases. We're certainly seeing some landlords bring nuisance holdover cases alleging that tenants are violating their lease or creating hazardous conditions in the apartment. And so all of these cases are being referred to providers like Legal Aid Society and other legal services organizations. Many of you probably already know New York City does have a right to counsel program. And so that was passed back in 2017 and has been phased in over the years. Due to the pandemic, a lot of those restrictions have been lifted in terms of who was eligible based on zip code. And so part of what we'll see now is what will happen in terms of expanding right to counsel in the face of the COVID-19 eviction crisis that's coming, right? And so we want to make sure that providers have the capacity to provide the services that are needed in the community. Okay, and then in terms of some information for tenants to keep in mind, everyone's individual cases are different, but it's important that, as you're if you do have an eviction case coming or that's already been brought, before you meet with your attorney, you want to make sure you have your records in place. You want to have your documents in order. If there's notices that you've gotten from the landlord or from the court, you want to keep good records of these different documents and notices. If you have pictures, receipts, heat logs, all of those different pieces of information and notices and documentation is important to organize. And then that way, when you do have to work with an attorney, they're able to kind of jump in and help you the best that they can. The last thing I want to emphasize is that even if you don't have a tenant housing court case, usually if there are tenants who are having issues with their landlord, whether it's harassment, there's overcharge issues, repairs, you're probably not alone. And there are probably other tenants in your building that are experiencing the same things that you are. And so it's important for tenants to work together, because when you work together, you have more power. You have leverage to negotiate with your landlord. You could potentially file cases as a group, including a group HP action. You can go on a rent strike. There are things that you can do as a tenant association and as a group of tenants that give you strength and power. And so myself and Jeremiah, we both work in our group housing unit at Legal Aid, and our group housing practice is in all 5 boroughs, and we work with tenant associations. Even if you haven't been sued, and the work that we do is oftentimes bringing affirmative cases against landlords. And so there's the eviction defense work, which the right to counsel model provides referrals to legal services, but there's also affirmative intake that we do as Legal Aid Society to represent tenant groups. And so it's important for tenants to know that there's a multitude of different services that are available. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And we have, finally, we have Liliana, who's been patiently waiting here, but with Housing Court Answers, and they are everywhere. So thank you for being here with us tonight.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting us. We appreciate being here. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you for all of that informative information. Thank you so much. Let me try to share my screen. Give me one moment, guys. Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay, hey guys. So who we are Housing Court Answers. My name is Liliana Pena. I'm so happy to be here today. Let me just go through this really quickly. I know we don't have that much time. So who we are Housing Court Answers. We are a not-for-profit organization that assists unprecedented tenants and homeowners in housing court. The services we provide: hotline. We have a hotline service where you can call. We right now are honestly taking from 150 to 300 calls a day from tenants all over New York City. We have information tables in the 5 boroughs in the housing courts. Right now, unfortunately, we cannot be in any of those tables. We're not in the courts right now, but we are servicing a lot of our constituents and tenants through our hotline. We also offer trainings and do a lot of advocacy work. Our trainings, if you visit our YouTube channel, we do have a lot of trainings and information that a lot of people can benefit from right now. So our hotline, we speak English, Spanish, and French, and we have access to interpretation services. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we're working remotely. You can call us 212-962-4795. We are open Monday through Fridays, every single day, 9 to 5. COVID protections. This is a quick little thing we put together just so people can know what's currently happening. COVID Emergency Evictions and Foreclosures Prevention Act, enacted December 28th, 2020, froze all cases until March 1st. Tenants can file a hardship declaration to freeze their case until May 1st. There is an exception though. Nuisance cases claiming the tenant is a danger to others are currently, we are seeing those types of cases being brought to court. Courts are partially opened until further notice. The courts are accepting cases from landlords by electronic filing only, and tenants can reopen default cases by simply asking the courts. Let me move this on. So we have COVID protections. COVID Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act. Tenants with a COVID-related loss of income or COVID-related expenses can file a hardship declaration. Once filed, the case will not proceed until after May 1st. We are stressing a lot of our callers who give us a call with issues of being worried because they're either being unfortunately harassed by their landlords Landlords are profusely asking for rent when they don't have it, when they know they don't have any income. We give them some information on right now on the hardship declaration form. This is a form that you can access through evictionfreeny.org. It's a very easy tool. There are a lot of tools now online that you can access to help in a lot of these matters. And we help in that as well. But yes, filing the hardship declaration form right now is very important. If you receive any legal documents in the mail, give us a call. We will direct you to the site or help you do this, and or at least just guide you through the process. And it's just very important. It will stop your case. It will pause your case until May 1st. Tenants can file the hardship declaration using an online tool. Like I just said, the website will send a copy by certified mail for free to the landlord and email a copy to the courts. It will also give you a tracking number so you can track the letters. So it's a very great tool. So for HP actions, Housing Court is hearing HP actions for tenants that need repairs in their apartments. There are several ways to start a case. You can file a case from home by using justfix.nyc. Again, another tool that has been created for tenants, especially those who can't get away. It's been really crucial now with COVID. It's been an amazing tool for tenants to use when they have issues in their apartments and can't discuss anything with the landlord or have issues again. It's just a really easy tool. Housing Court can help you file or connect you to legal representation. You can file in person or at Housing Court. Harassment cases. You can also file for a harassment case using the JustFix tool. And here is what is considered harassment. So cutting off essential services, gas, electricity, water, heat, using force or threat of force, removing tenants' belongings out of the apartment, locking their door, or changing locks without a marshal. In harassment cases, the tenant must prove that the harassment is an attempt to force them out of the home. I always say and stress to tenants who we get calls from to document. Documentation is very, very important. Just either have a notebook, call 311 as many times as you can. 311 documents, and it's a great source. As far as in the courts, they are able to access that information and view how many times a tenant has called 311. So it's very important to document, and that's if it's repairs. Harassment, it's again, very important. Just to document instances of harassment. Get a notebook, jot down every single time something happens, and just keep it for your record in case you ever do have to go to court or file a case for harassment. It's something that you can just look to later on. So in harassment cases, the tenant must prove that the harassment is an attempt to force them out of the home. Cases can be filed using justfix.nyc or by a legal service provider. Tenancy. Anyone who has paid rent or has been living in their apartment for at least 30 days cannot be evicted without a court process. This includes roommates, subletters, family members. Only a city marshal or a sheriff can evict someone. They must have a judgment in court. Rights for roommates. Roommates are considered also tenants under the law and are entitled to due process. Only a judge can sign off on a warrant for eviction, and only a marshal or sheriff can execute that eviction. Prime tenants and landlords must start cases in court even if they want to evict a tenant. Illegal lockouts. What is an illegal lockout? Locking the tenant's door by someone who is not a marshal or a sheriff, cutting off essential services, changing or removing the locks to the door, removing the door, removing possessions. Tenants that are illegally locked out of the apartment can call the police. If that doesn't work, they can file an emergency case. And again, sometimes in these situations, we hear tenants call police. Sometimes things don't happen. They may not have a lease on hand. The police may just not be helpful. Again, it's just important to document all of these instances. Anytime the landlord is harassing, attempting anything that may seem illegal, that doesn't seem right, just document it at least. Getting help with back rent. So with our organization, we work with a lot of charities and organizations that we are able to refer tenants to. HRA is one of them. They do the one-shot deal. They help with ongoing public assistance. They offer programs like FEPS and City FEPS. There's also social service organizations, and most organizations have limited resources. Some can assist undocumented tenants. You can please call us, and we do screen people who call us to see if they are, or to see what benefits they do qualify for. And so that we're just not also giving them the runaround. We're really crucial about that, about not doing that. It's very important to us to try to help as much as we can right then and there. Organizations offering rent arrears assistance do not require tenants to be in court. This is a big thing now. Before the COVID, before the pandemic, a lot of organizations were and did require for tenants to have a court case. Now that is not the case, which is really good. Okay, so this was fairly quick. So please, if you can give us a call. Housing Court Answers, our number is 212-962-4795. Again, we're open every day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can visit us on our website, housingcourtanswers.org. And we have all social medias, Instagram, Twitter. So please communicate with us there. And again, our YouTube channel, we do offer tons of videos, tons of trainings. And it's just an important resource for people and your neighbors. So please share. And thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Liliana. So thank you to everyone. There was a boatload of information. Those who are here, I do hope that you take advantage of it. I was a lot of it, the Q&A, our panelists were active in answering your questions during the presentations. So if any of you were ones who asked questions and haven't seen them, please look at the Q&A. If you feel that the question wasn't answered fully, or you have something else that it sparked, feel free to quickly ask a question now. Yeah, I also want to encourage you all, make sure you look at the chat. Our panelists are very gracious in providing contact information as well as helpful links. So there was a lot of information today, but I do believe that we tried to make it as accessible so that you can take away with you and actually take advantage of all of the various resources and things that have been presented today. So yeah, so with that, I don't know if I'll give one last round. I don't think we have any hands, right, Marlene? Or anything?
No, just for attendees, if you do have questions, just raise your hands virtually. I think I only saw one person that called in. Press *9 if you did call in. Let me see. No, that person has left. So everyone has joined virtually. So raise your hand virtually if you do have a question, and we'll take you off of mute.
All right, folks. Well, I don't see anything. I do hope that this was helpful again. And I thank you all so much, again, for taking time to come to present. We know that we are hopefully moving towards, something a little bit more stable, as a society, as we combat this, the pandemic, the virus that's going on. But we're still far from being out of the woods. So I hope that you all continue to remain safe and take advantage of this information. There's a lot that's going to evolve, right? There's federal proposals, state proposals, all over that range from extending moratoria to canceling rents, to canceling mortgages for small homeowners, small landlords. There's all these sorts of things. Go explore, take a look. A lot of things can change. But that's why these are so important, because this gives you, there's periodic updates, and these are the sorts of events which will keep you posted, right? Because our information can evolve and change day to day. So take advantage of those links and the contact information, because these are our experts. These are the places where that evolved, that changed information, you'll find those updates, right? So you can go back to those resources. So yeah, so I don't think I've missed anything else. I thank you all again. I hope that you have a wonderful evening, and everyone please take care. And I hope to be, hopefully we will be seeing each other in person at some point in the not too distant future. All right, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a great
Evening.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
night.
Thank you for the invitation. Everyone stay safe.
Of course, good night.
Good night.
Take care, everyone.